All right, let's talk some of it with our guy, Matt Hayes. He joins us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Matt, what's going on, man? How are you today?
Gentlemen, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on. Where is the most interesting spring football frequently is not interesting, but we've got new coaches, we've got quarterback battles. Where is the most interesting spring to you?
I mean, it's got to be LSU. There's first off, there's so many different faces there, including the head coach, who I think is going to do a terrific job. It's odd to me that Brian Kelly's getting so much pushback in the idea that he can win there. I mean, this is a guy who recruited his last class at Notre Dame was a top 5 class. He's recruiting with inherent obstacles there. It's academic restrictions he's dealing with, and it's like I kind of like it to going from drinking through a straw, to stand in front of a fire hose and having a guy, shoot it at you. That's the difference between Notre Dame and LSU right now, and he's going to crush it. He will crush it in recruiting. He will get guys there. Right now, this is certainly a transition year. I think it's the most interesting part is, he convinced Miles Brennan to come back instead of going into the transfer portal. And then, about, a month and a half later, he signed Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State quarterback, out of the transfer portal. And then he was asked about it. And I love it. This is Brian Kelly to a T right here. He was like, all right, I'm going to tell you the same that I told Miles Brennan, go win the job. And that's the way it should be. There shouldn't be you promised me this. There's no promises right now. The way this portal is, the way recruiting is, there are no promises. The way NIL is now, go win the job. If you don't like it, then go somewhere else.
Matt is always, especially on Mondays, in our top reads at nextroundlive.com, our morning rounds. And he writes today about Jimbo Fisher and how he's built a monster at College Station. Alabama fans saw it last year. They lost in College Station, but then Texas A&M lost before that and after that. What makes you think that this could be the roster that starts Jimbo moving towards a championship at College Station?
Well, honestly, he's recruited top 5 classes the last 3 years. The last one was allegedly now, all we can go by is what the recruiting guys tell us, the greatest class in the history of classes. They've got 5-star guys all over the place there, 4-star guys all over the place there. It's like Alabama and Georgia. And, you can continue to add the talent and the dudes there. At some point, you got to win. You beat Alabama, but you can't beat Alabama in a season and lose to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Texas, and LSU in the same season. You just can't. Teams that all 4 of those teams, they were better than. You can't do that. So I kind of liken them to Georgia. When Georgia was trying to find itself under Kirby early, and Georgia didn't, it was almost like they didn't think they could beat Alabama. You got to get to the point where when you're in a game like that, you got to first win the games you should win. That's the key to being a championship team. Win the games you should win. And then the 50-50 games, you got to win your majority of them. And this is where they are right now. They've got to take that step to where you just dust off people that you should play and you should win. Alabama doesn't fool around in games they should win. They go in and they take care of business. That's where Texas A&M has to be. Georgia is there now. It's the 50-50 games that decide whether you're a champion or not.
With the way it fell apart at Florida State for Jimbo, if I'm an Aggie fan, am I concerned about his ability to manage a program, or is there great recruiting a sign that maybe he has learned some lessons that he didn't have in his holster in Tallahassee?
Well, I think everybody learns, number one, and number two, there were other factors with Jimbo there in Tallahassee. Look, there's no doubt that Jimbo let that go. There's no doubt that he missed on quarterbacks as far as recruiting. There's no doubt that players were kind of running the show there. But, he was also at the point where they weren't doing what he wanted as far as facilities. He was getting frustrated there. And if you're frustrated with your administration and they're not doing what you'd like them to do, and you're still winning games and winning big, and you think, all right, well, I won a national championship, let's build off that, and they don't do what you want, then you kind of, whether you like it or not, that's going to seep into what you're doing on the field. It just is. And I think that was part of it. And I think it was part of, Jimbo kind of let the great players run the team. And I don't think he's going to do that now. Well, I guess we said that about Urban Meyer. He did the same thing at Ohio State, so we don't really know. No, honestly, we don't really know. You hope that coaches change. You hope they're like, all right, well, that didn't work out, so I got to do it this way. And if he does, and the way he's recruiting, I mean, look at what he's doing on the recruiting field. It's phenomenal. He's getting those elite defensive linemen, those 5-star guys that Nick used to get. And I wrote last year that Georgia was getting those elite defensive linemen that Nick used to get. And everybody's wondering why isn't Alabama's defense like it used to be in the early years of Nick? Because he's not getting the players anymore. He's not getting the elite offensive players. And I don't know if that's an idea of, look, this is how you win, and I don't think it is, but they're not getting the defensive guys anymore. So at least the elite ones. So that's where Jimbo's building. He's building inside out, just like Kirby did. Kirby eventually figured it out. They won a national championship with Stetson Bennett playing quarterback, for God's sake. In an era of where it's quarterback focused, where it's all about the passing game, where you got to go down the field vertically. They won a national championship with Stetson flipping Bennett. It's an amazing story, actually. They were so good on defense. They were so suffocating on defense. All they needed was somebody at the quarterback spot to not screw up, and it was perfect. It was a perfect storm for Georgia.
Matt Hayes is with us. You can go follow Matt on Twitter. Read him at Saturday Down South, as Jim said. Follow him at Matt Hayes CFB, at Matt Hayes CFB. He is on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. I think this game will get a lot of talk in the offseason, but as we talk, Texas A&M, there are a lot of people that feel like Mario Cristobal can instantly find success at Miami. I am not in that group, Matt. I don't know what group you're in, but that is a game A&M gets week 3, which at least helmet-wise is interesting.
I love Mario. That's number one. I think he's a fantastic coach, a terrific recruiter. I think he's going to bring them back. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I love Van Dyke, the quarterback. I mean, that's a guy who had a huge season last year as a freshman that no one basically saw because of all the drama with Manny Diaz. They're going to be good. Are they good enough to win that game? Maybe. That's a dangerous spot for Texas A&M. I can tell you that right now. Miami's got some athletes. They can run. I don't think they're that good on the lines of scrimmage. Mario's probably got another year or two to go before he gets them up to speed there. And A&M right now is really good as far as going inside out, so recruiting inside out. So, I mean, that will be a tough game for Texas A&M. Would I be shocked if Miami won that game? No, not in the least. Not in the least. For the main reason of, I still think Texas, like we said earlier, is still in that Texas A&M is still in that situation where they're figuring out how to win big games and how to win games they should. And I just don't know that they're there yet.
When you have the kind of success Nick Saban has had, you obviously put a lot of assistants into coaching. You mentioned Mario Cristobal, and I was told by the great late Cecil Hurt one time that Mario had what it took to be a championship coach. He said the same thing about Billy Napier, and I've had other people tell me that Napier reminds them of a young Nick Saban, a younger Nick Saban. What have you seen from Billy Napier so far in Gainesville, and how much do you like or dislike what he's doing so far in Gainesville?
Boy, Jim, imagine having that tag put on you. You're
I
a
know.
young Nick Saban.
There's no pressure there.
My God, imagine that. I mean, clearly he's modeling his program after what Nick did at Alabama. It's not just the way he talks, which he does talk exactly like Nick, his mannerisms. It's the way he set up the program with he's got a deep recruiting staff of analysts, of video analysts. He realizes that the way you win games is recruiting dudes. That's how you win games. And, once you get them there, then you develop them. But the reality is you've got to have good players. And, Nick would be the first guy to say it all the time. Good players win games. And for some reason, Dan Mullen hadn't figured that out, and I don't know why. And that's what cost him his job. And Billy knows that. What will happen in Florida? He's got to recruit well, man. He did a very nice job in the, 6 weeks that he had. But he's now they're at the point where, okay, now he's going head-to-head with Alabama for guys. He's going head-to-head with Georgia, and with now LSU with Brian Kelly. He's got a lot of work ahead of him, and he's got a lot of guys around him that know how to recruit, including Shane Beamer at South Carolina. So it's going to be a tough road, man. It's not like it used to be, I'll tell you that. It's definitely not like it used to be in the league where you had maybe 2 or 3 recruiters. Jimbo's another guy going in the state of Florida. I've been saying this all along, that if Billy Napier can say, okay, the days of Nick Saban going into South Florida and getting Jerry Jeudy or going into Apopka and getting Evan Neal, they're over. If he can just do that, if he can keep those elite players in the state of Florida and not let them get to Alabama or Ohio State like the Boza brothers, you keep those kids in state and he can win a national championship. But that's a lot to ask when you've got a guy like Nick Saban, a guy like Kirby Smart. Their program is now embedded in the state of Florida. That's the tough ask.
And doesn't Mario add to that difficulty for Kirby
Sure.
and Nick as well?
Yeah. 100% he does. 100%. That was Miami landing Mario was the worst thing that could have happened for Florida because they could deal with Florida State and Mike Norvell. That wasn't going to be an issue. The issue was going to be what happened with Miami, who Miami hired. And Ruiz, the big billionaire businessman down there in Miami, just said, all right, enough's enough. How much do you want? What's it going to take to bring Miami? Miami hasn't been Miami in more than 2 decades, guys. So I think they'd had enough down there, and he was told it's going to cost X amount for us to go get Mario. It's going to cost X amount for us to build an on-campus facility, football stadium, and he's just saying yes to everything. So, yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Mario develops there at Miami.
You and I were not doing this when Archie Griffin won back-to-back Heisman trophies. What would it take for a majority of the voters, too many voters, but the majority of the voters to vote for Bryce Young again?
Well, Jim, you know me, number one, okay? I'm not like the rest of those guys. I get annoyed by it. All they do is look for the negative. So that's the first thing. Number one, the Heisman voters, the media in general, they'll all be on Bryce Young from day one with negative. He's not this. He's not that. He had this many touchdowns last year. Now he has this. That's what he's got to deal with. That's the issue. The issue is the social media garbage that's out there that will constantly be saying he's not what he was the previous year, or looking at someone else. I mean, I think he's got to have another huge type season where you get beyond that. You've got to literally get beyond the nonsense out there on social media by having just such a great season. It's difficult to even say, well, no, he shouldn't win 2 in a row. For some reason, I don't know why. For some reason, winning 2 in a row is like you can't do it, and don't even talk about it because no one's going to do it. It shouldn't have been done before, and I don't understand that. Bryce Young was far and away the best player in college football last year. I expect him, if Jermaine Burton develops into the receiver, an elite receiver, if they get some help from Ja'Cory Brooks or a couple of freshmen last year that kind of didn't pan out, or a couple of freshmen this year, that's the big issue with the receivers there, man. They don't – the receivers that they had in the past, and it kind of stopped with Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, that class, they're not recruiting those impact receivers like they did 3 years ago. So that's the issue. And if they can get a couple of those guys to have an impact, then I think he's got a great chance to win it again. But again, Jim, that's just me. I'm not Mr. Negative like everybody else.
That's right, Dunaway. Hey, but I mean, there are times though, Matt, where the biggest competition for Alabama's Heisman Trophy winner vote-wise has been on their own team, and I do think Will Anderson, maybe not to the level of Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, but I do think Will Anderson could have the type of year where he will get some votes.
He will, but at the end of the day, it's also going to be about first place votes.
Yeah,
and that's the big thing. And I mean, believe me, what Will Anderson did last year was unbelievable. And he's going to benefit, I think, from Dallas Turner developing into another Russian on the other side. That will help him. That will take a lot of double teams away from him. I don't know if he's going to have the same type of season because you're still going to see teams chipping on him and doing everything they can to move the offense away from him. My guess would be Turner's going to have a really good season, and they'll be not near each other, but it'll be. I don't see Will Anderson get. What do you have? 34.5 tackles for loss or something last year. I'm not sure I see that again this year. People will run the offense away from him.
First and 10 is the column that Matt writes every single week at Saturday Down South. It is a must-read, a great way to start your week with some college football. SaturdayDownSouth.com. Go follow Matt on Twitter at MattHayesCFB. Thank you for the time, Matt. Have a great week.
Sure, fellas. My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, buddy. Take care. Matt Hayes with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.